We are live once again. Hopefully, everyone had a bit of time to refill their coffee. We are going to kick right into it with Cooper Krauss joining us today. Welcome, Cooper.
Thanks, Joe. Also, pronounce my last name right, which is great. Most of the time, people say Cross, so appreciate you getting that right.
Yeah, no worries. Well, it looks like you're talking about personal branding a bit. So interesting to see what you've got in store for us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to talk. Yeah, it's personal branding. I say that there's some of that in there, but I think that it's kind of one of the things that underlay kind of the bigger topic, which is something I've been talking about a lot lately to my team and people I work with, is just this idea that we're from a sales perspective, we're sort of in this space where we need to stop chasing prospects so much and start attracting them a little bit more. And so it's got a little bit of a marketing orientation to it for those of us that maybe grew up in a traditional sales seat. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. So yeah, am I good to go ahead and just kind of dive in?
Yeah, you are welcome to charge ahead.
Awesome. So like I said, stop chasing, start attracting. It really just alludes to the fact that as salespeople, especially if you're in an outbound prospecting seat, I'm calling it like a requirement to shift from salespeople that chase and cold call and cold email to ones that start attracting our prospects. So we'll talk a little bit about how we do that. A quick intro on myself really quickly. So right now I'm head of sales dev at a company called Degreed. Really, it's where lifelong learning is going to be met with data-driven development. So we're trying to help companies become skills-based organizations. So, talking about the idea of shifting from chasing to attracting actually kind of comes down to learnability and aptitude. The most valuable thing that most of us can do for ourselves over the next few years is learn how to learn fast and then identify high value skills and learn them. And I would say some of the stuff that I'm about to talk through are those high value skills. So head of sales dev right now, and have been in this seat since mid-December, have been at the company since July of 21. So started out managing the Americas SDR team, and then in December got moved to the global head of sales dev. So been an interesting, first 30 to 45 days. Our fiscal year is 131, so we just got through sales kickoff, and so it's been a crazy first patch. Interesting fact about me: in 2016, I performed at South by Southwest, so grew up still am a massive hip hop fan, and so love to write and create music to this day. And fortunate enough to play on a small stage with a good group of friends back 7 years ago now, which is crazy. That's my fun fact. Got to go down to Austin and perform at South by. Cool. All right, let's dive into exactly what I'm talking about. So where this all stems from, this idea of stop chasing, start attracting, and why I'm so passionate about it right now, is that I actually grew up as a cold calling SDR, and then did some full cycle sales, and also was moved into closing roles. So, and now obviously I'm in leadership. And one thing that I've noticed is that mostly we're still selling the same way, but buyers are buying entirely differently. And I don't think that's revolutionary. I think that everybody knows that now. But there's an entire category now that Gartner's talking about, which is called buyer enablement, which I think the fact that this category even exists is just proof that expectations and needs and wants from buyers are changing. In that same report where Gartner talks about buyer enablement, they talk about how 77% of buyers said their last software purchase was difficult. So that just goes to show that our buyers don't feel like we're adapting to what they are looking for. And then cold outreach math is just getting worse. I want to be clear: cold calling, cold emailing, it's not dead right now. But my take is that it's definitely not the future. I don't see a scenario in which, answer rates get higher whenever we're calling somebody. or email reply rates are getting any better. You've got phone blocking systems now. Like, you call somebody now, Google's got a screening system to find out who you are before you ever even get to that person on their cell phone or business phone. You've got much more security around email that's coming through into organizations. So in my mind, I don't see a scenario where this math gets any better unless, at some point everybody does shift so far away from cold calling and cold emailing that it actually becomes the unique thing to do here again in 5 to 7 years. But it breaks my heart to say it, because again, I grew up, my first position was selling insurance for farmers, my first sales role. And my second day on my job, they set down a stack of papers and just said, hey, here are names, numbers, phone numbers, addresses. Let's see what you can do. So I cut my teeth cold calling. So it breaks my heart to say that it's not as effective as it used to be, but it's just not. Really, all of the data that I've seen on multiple resources is in 2007, it took about 3 calls to connect with a prospect, and now it takes 12 to 15. So it's just a different equation. It used to be an equation that worked, right? It used to be make this many calls, get this many meetings, that gets this many ops, and so you're going to close this many deals. That equation for most sales motions is pretty much been rendered useless with the way that buyers buy now. So, and then the last point here is just that, and this is where it starts to talk a little bit about personal branding, and we start to get into that space, is just the fact that buyers don't ignore companies. They definitely, or like Gartner, they've got a great brand. So people don't ignore companies, but they pay more attention to people that they trust, which is why we're seeing this huge surge of people creating content on LinkedIn where you can drive a lot of credibility that way. So yeah, those are kind of the reasons that this has all come about. So in short, this kind of, stop chasing, start attracting idea is, you think about the fact that buyers spend about 83% of their time without a salesperson's involvement when they're evaluating a software. So we're talking about 17% of their time is what we get, but realistically we're competing for that time. So maybe we get 5% of the buyer's time as they go throughout an evaluation process. And this just isn't in SaaS either, right? Like my wife, she works for an ad firm here in Kansas City, and one of their clients is a tool manufacturer. So their clients are AutoZone, mechanics, body shops, things like that. And the traditional sales motion here is a sales rep shows up to your shop with a truck full of tools and pressures you into buying as much as you possibly can. That's not how they want to buy anymore. So they want to customize their entire tool set online without sales pressure and have it delivered to their shop. So regardless of industry, function, job, whatever you want to think about it, the way that people want to buy has just changed dramatically, but we're still sitting in a seat, making a ton of calls, sending a ton of emails, and wondering why we're not getting the numbers that we want to get. So you think about all that, and you just start to, at least for me, start to realize relationship management is just becoming less important, which probably feels a little bit counterintuitive. I think a lot of people think with the rise of generative AI and things like that, it's easy to assume that this will give us more time to focus on the relationship piece of business, but that's not it. I don't think that's the way it's going to be in sales. I think that buyers are still going to want to connect with their peers, read reviews, form internal buying committees, and handle things at their own pace. So by the time they want to talk to a salesperson, they really want to know 2 things. Technically speaking, how does this really work for my company, and what does implementation look like? And for real, how much is this going to cost me, and what sort of ROI can I expect? So if you're in a closing role and the majority of your time is spent herding sheep, right? The B2B buying committees are getting bigger and bigger, right? So it could be anywhere from 4 people to 12 people involved in a buying decision. If the majority of your time is spent trying to get all those stakeholders on the same page, chasing legal and procurement, InfoSec, I would personally encourage you to master storytelling and master demo delivery, because my take is that middle piece of AEs that are really just taking a meeting from the SDR and then setting up a demo and handing off that demo to their solution engineer or business architect, that is going to become a less valuable position. And so with that, I think even the SDRs, right, it's becoming a little bit more hard for us to get a hold of prospects. People largely work from home now. Again, reply rates are lower all around. And so I think the SDR sort of over the next couple of years starts to shift into a marketer of sorts, where they're focused on community development and content creation and distribution. So community development would be really a scenario where you're building a prospect community as a part of the marketing organization, a marketing initiative, but really you turn more into a community development rep opposed to a sales rep. So in this space, you never ever sell. You just become a SME in your industry, so you can actually add real value to the conversations, which I think is something that SDRs tend to struggle with. How can I have valuable conversations with my prospects if I don't know as much as they do or close to, right? Because the reality is SDRs historically have been incentivized to just be high volume machines and not really stop and become experts about the product of the industry. And my suggestion would be, let's have a team of people who are really focused on building credibility through what they know and the types of conversations that they can have, opposed to just calling people and trying to sell them, because that's just not the type of experience that buyers want. And then content creation, distribution, it sounds fancier than it is, but it's really just a matter of reading an industry article, digesting it, developing your own point of view on that article, and consistently publishing content on LinkedIn or a newsletter, whatever that may be. But again, it goes back to becoming a SME in your space and building credibility with the people that you're trying to attract, because you can use that as somewhat of a qualification tool as well, right? When we're focused on, making 75 calls a day, and we're just trying to get one person to convert, how many times do they actually want to meet with us, or how many times are they actually interested when they do take a meeting? Versus if you're building credibility and people come to you, that's automatically a layer of qualification, because they're reaching out to you or interacting with your post. So there's a lot of built-in qualification there. The tricky piece is the way that your career will change, right? So if you spend 4 years selling, learning technology, and let's say you build 4 years building knowledge and a point of view on L&D, skill building, things like that, that'll be really, really valuable. But then one day a fintech company reaches out to you and it's an opportunity you can't pass up, and you take that job, and now your point of view on L&D and this audience you've been building and this content you've been building maybe isn't as important to the people that you're going to be selling to now in this fintech space. So that is a challenge that I think, you'd have to overcome, but I still think it's worth figuring out, how to become a SME of a topic and becoming a good enough writer and audience builder to attract people. And I think, more than anything, if you really love an industry, do your best to stick with it. That way you can build an audience over the long term. And then I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but really feel like we're at a spot where closers, AEs, sales directors, whatever we want to call them, need to become a little bit more technical. In my experience, over the last 8 to 9 years, most AEs, they pass off that demo responsibility to their business architect or their solution engineer. If you're an AE, chances are you're a skilled strategic seller. And I just think it's time to develop the skill of being able to deliver a technical demo. And then from there, you can become really dangerous, right? So the gap that I'm trying to draw is, I think SDRs go more marketing, and AEs, if that's the track you want to continue to take, I think you become a little bit more technical and develop that skill set of being able to really deep dive into a demo. And then the last thing, and this is all kind of wrapped into everything that I've been saying, but there's really not a future where sales becomes less digital. So probably more important than anything, and frankly, why I'm doing this right now, and we'll continue to do more of this, is we're at a point where you can have anybody can have an audience, or you can even call it a micro audience, right? Like we have 5 billion people have access to the internet. You need all of 5,000 or 10,000 people to like what you have to say, and you'll have opportunities the rest of your life. And so this sets outside of the SDR AE situation. And this really just, as an individual, you look at what's going on right now. We've got a ton of layoffs taking place. And the reality is, as long as you work for somebody else, you are at risk of losing your job when times get tough. So having a personal brand or having some sort of hot take on a subject that captures attention is invaluable. So, I hope all of that makes sense. Hopefully I'm explaining that well. I guess just to kind of recap on the way that I've been thinking through it lately is I see SDRs as that function becoming a little bit more marketing oriented focus, where you focus them on building a community of prospects, and it's less about just trying to convert them every single time that we talk to them, and take the pressure off a little bit, both the prospect and the SDR. And really invite the SDR to become more of a subject matter expert on whatever it is the industry is and whatever product that we're selling. And then again, the AEs become more than just a relationship manager and really get strong at storytelling through a demo. So all that said, key takeaway for me is future of sales belongs to those who can develop community and personal brand. So at the beginning, kind of talked about learnability and adaptability. Most salespeople, myself included, right? I'm kind of embarking on this right now, which you'll see on the next slide a little bit, but we're not really equipped with the skill, knowledge systems to build a community or build a personal brand, or might be a little bit hesitant to go build a personal brand on something like LinkedIn for a variety of reasons. But I think the necessity to learn quickly is evident through how quickly business critical skills have changed the last 3 to 4 years. And that's going to continue to take place. And so I think that there can be business critical skills that ebb and flow, right? Like next year, there might be some new skill that pops up that is really, really critical for the business that you work for. I think all things considered, as long as you've got a small group of people online who trust you and agree with what you, or like what you say and like your point of view on things, you'll always be in a good position. So key takeaway, future of sales belong to those who can develop community and brand. Hopefully that was on time. Hopefully I didn't go too much.
So I know you got a quick plug if you want to move forward and showcase that, and then I think we'll wrap up. But yeah, it was terrific talk, Cooper. You want to talk a bit about this daily sales rep?
Yeah, quick thing. It's a newsletter. It's every Tuesday. It's kind of a two-pronged thing. I'm either going to talk about tactics that do work today. So again, I said cold outreach isn't dead. There are still things that do work today. And then I also talk about stuff that I think we need to consider for the future. It's been several months since I've written an issue, to be honest, because I was focused on getting the role that I got in December. So it was kind of worth the break. Got the role, and now I'll be back on this starting next week. So it's kind of good timing.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks so much, Cooper. Love the talk. If anybody wants to check it out afterwards, you can always view the recordings. Thanks again, Cooper. Hope to talk soon.
Thanks.
All right. And we will be joining back up. Let's give us, we went a couple minutes over, so let's give us maybe 2 minutes here to get our next speaker lined up, and then we will jump right back in. Thank you.